Hello, today we have an interesting shock absorber to show you. It's a rear shock absorber from a Lamborghini Aventador SV or SVJ. If I'm not mistaken, here it is, along with the part number. The shock absorber is made by BWI and it's adaptive. It's an adaptive shock absorber combined with a spring. It was sent to us from the Far East by an official Lamborghini representative. Funny enough, it arrived in a Ferrari parts box. It's a monotube shock absorber with magnetic ride fluid.
Амортисьор с магнитно масло, Magnetic Magneto Rheological масло.
This is an extremely stiff shock absorber with very high resistance.
С много голямо съпротивление.
Funny detail, the socket size is 1J, the same one used on a VW Golf 4. Of course, that's just a joke Lamborghini. Now we'll disassemble it and put it on the test stand to see how it performs. Initial test.
Ще го разглобим и ще го сложим на стенда, за да видим каква му е.
Automatic dynamometer test of the shock absorber to check its behavior.
Начален тест, автоматичен динамометричен тест на амортисьора, за да видим какво прави.
Right from the start we can see
Още от самото начало виждаме
extremely asymmetrical graphs, really poor results.
кофти графика.
You can even hear the knocking. I'll explain in a moment why that happens.
След малко ще обясня защо се случва това нещо. Просто чукане, което чувате, се случва точно ето тук. Ужас.
So, what's the issue? This is a monotube shock absorber, where we have both a gas chamber and oil. Part of the gas has passed through the separator and mixed with the oil, turning it partly into foam. What happens then? Let's look at the graph.
Какво се случва? Гледаме графиката, която
It shows the force versus displacement. On the horizontal axis, we see resistance in kilograms. Here we measure from the zero position, displacement of 40 mm,
преместването 40 мм.
compared to how many kilograms of resistance it creates. So, we see at which point of compression and rebound
Кое положение на
the shock absorber provides resistance. And what do we notice here?
И какво се вижда? Тук в
In the fully extended position, when compression begins,
отворено, когато започне да събира
there's almost no resistance as if it's loose.
почти нищо. Все едно имаме
Between 20 and almost 10 mm, it behaves as if it's in free fall.
е амортисьора в безтегловност.
Then, as we compress further, the foamy oil is squeezed,
Пяната. Маслото под форма на пяна. Когато го
and at a certain point it turns back into liquid under pressure.
в един момент маслото вече става в течна заради
Suddenly, strong resistance appears,
течна фаза седо, да го наречем. И изведнъж ударно показва
so first there's slack, and then, bang, we get 600 kg of resistance.
и след това имаме 600 кг съпротивление.
Exactly at the transition point, between almost no resistance
Нищо, почти нулево
and very high resistance, you hear a thump,
голямо съпротивление се чува като удар.
along with rattling, which feels like looseness while driving. This makes the shock absorber quite dangerous. The shock absorber is extremely stiff.
Aventador, нормално, защото все пак
Right now,
това е супер мощен автомобил. Другото, което е интересно,
about 60 cycles, you can see how heavy the load is.
значи, ето в момента, ще
We let it run a bit faster,
60 оборота. Виждате какво му е натоварване.
and when we apply electric current
Малко, ще го пусна на малко по-бързо.
to the solenoid inside, what happens?
Когато подадем електрически ток на соленоида вътре, виж какво се получава.
becomes so stiff that even the test stand blocks.
Дори стенда за кола за момента. Мисъл, супер твърд амортисьор и...
Another observation, the stiffer the damper,
Другото интересно е колко по-твърд става амортисьора,
the worse the graph results. Let's stop stressing it. We'll open it up, repair it, and show you what's inside. We've disassembled the shock and now we'll show you something interesting.
Отворихме амортисьора и ще ви покажем.
As I mentioned at the beginning, this is a magnetic ride shock.
Това е Magneto Rheological амортисьор.
So, what's special about it?
Какво е особеното? Маслото...
The oil inside is not just oil, it contains ferromagnetic metal particles.
И метален прах, феромагнитни частици.
How does the stiffness change? This is the working piston.
Това е работното бутало.
It moves inside the tube, and when an electric current is applied through these wires,
Когато се подаде електрически
the
ток,
piston generates a magnetic field.
буталото, работното бутало
That magnetic field changes the viscosity of the oil.
поле променя гъстотата на маслото.
Because the oil thickens when exposed to the field. Why am I explaining this? Here we have original, brand new magnetic ride fluid.
Оригинално, ново, неизползвано.
In this bottle you can see the liquid oil on top, and at the bottom the metal powder has settled.
Масло, а отдолу виждаме как се...
Notice how the metal particles separate.
Ето, виждате как се отива.
When the liquid portion leaks out,
когато изтече течната част на маслото, изтече от...
only the metal dust remains, and the shock absorber becomes extremely stiff and stops working. The Lamborghini Aventador isn't a very heavy car, yet this shock absorber
тежък автомобил, амортисьора
produced so much resistance that it even blocked the test stand.
стенда не успя да изключи. Защо?
Take a look at what's left inside the shock absorber.
Паста.
Mud, I don't even know what else to call it. This is what's left in the oil, mostly metal particles with just a little.
Е останало в маслото. Единствено металните частици заедно с малко
Bit of oil forming a thick sludge.
гъста кал паста.
Once we replace everything inside the shock, it will be fine again.
Амортисьора ще се получи следното.
Here you can see the liquid oil and below it, the solid sediment.
Когато се разбие,
We'll mix it properly so everything becomes consistent.
и вече няма да имаме това нещо.
Inside the shock absorber there should be normal liquid oil, which creates the required resistance. The problem with this shock is the following. Here we have a guide with an oil seal.
Имаме водач с маслен семеринг.
It leaked, so the liquid part of the magnetic oil escaped,
Част от магнитното масло изтича.
leaving only the metal dust. Everything inside turned to mud.
За да се оправи, трябва да се
To fix it, both the oil and the oil seal must be replaced. And here's one more interesting thing we'll show you.
Още нещо интересно ще ви покажем.
We've placed a drop of magnetic oil here, and now we'll test it with a magnet.
Магнитно масло. И ще си поиграем с магнит.
Watch what happens when my colleague brings the magnet close.
Вижте какво се получава.
And when he removes the magnet, it instantly becomes thinner, more fluid again.
По-меко.
So after changing the oil, the guide, and the separator,
Смени маслото, масления водач, сепаратора.
everything will return to normal. Important note, always use gloves with these dampers.
При тези амортисьори
The fine metal particles are extremely small and can pass
изключително финни могат
through the skin and enter the bloodstream. In other words, the oil is toxic. Never touch it with bare hands. After the repair, the shock absorber is expected to become noticeably softer.
ремонта на амортисьора се очаква той да стане
Most likely, this Aventador with such stiff shocks
най-вероятно въпросното Ламбо с амортисьори в такова
was driving around like a wagon.
каруца.
After repairing the shock absorber, we'll show you how it works.
Ще ви покажа.
Again on the test stand, now that we've replaced all.
Сменили сме водача, масления
The oil seals and filled it with original Magneto Rheological oil in the separator.
Magneto Rheological масло.
Right now, it's being tested.
И в момента
As you saw earlier, everything inside was like mud,
Амортисьора всичко беше под формата на
and the oil's viscosity was extremely low
и вискозитета на маслото беше
because it had become too thick and inconsistent.
много гъсто, то беше останало само метална каша.
The shock absorber was extremely stiff even without electrical control.
Дори без никакво
It was unbearably hard.
изключително твърд.
Now look at it. Without electricity, it shows just 6 kg of resistance. That means, with no solenoid control, it's almost like I'm now running another test.
Почти в безтегловност. Пускам още един.
This time with electric control.
На този път с управление. За да видите
To see how much resistance it generates in sport mode, so to speak.
какъв резистанс прави.
The idea is that Lamborghini, Ferrari, Mustang, Corvette,
Ферари, Макларен.
all these sports cars are designed to be as fast as possible.
Направени, нали, чиято цел е да бъдат
They are lightweight, and there's no way a true sports car,
леки автомобили. Няма как при един напълно
with half its body made of carbon fiber,
който половината може би от карбон.
should have a shock absorber with 1 ton of resistance.
Един брой, който да прави съпротивление е 1 тон.
In reality, before the repair, this Lamborghini drove like a wagon,
То преди ремонта
as if the shock absorbers were completely locked up.
той е возел все едно, са абсолютно блокирали амортисьорите.
Now we'll also perform a manual test
Ще пуснем и един ръчен тест за
to demonstrate how the system stiffens and softens the shock absorber.
подяване и омекотяване на амортисьора.
Let's check the rebound. What resistance do we get?
На баунт и на ребаунд какво съпротивление прави?
By applying electrical current to the damper, we can make it stiffer or softer.
Започваме да го правим.
What happens? At the moment, we apply current.
В момента, подавайки електрически ток,
A magnetic field is created inside the shock absorber, and that field
прави
makes the magnetic oil significantly thicker.
доста по-твърдо. Гъсто, извиняйте. По-гъсто.
From there, its viscosity increases and the shock absorber provides more resistance. Now the shock absorber is ready to go back on the car, noticeably softer.
Качване на колата, осезаемо по-мек,
With perfectly symmetrical graphs, it will perform like a brand new OEM unit.
чисто нов, оригинален.
One more important thing to mention.
Нещо само да споменеме. Ето го другия.
Magnetic ride oil, as we said, contains fine metal particles,
Съдържа метален прах. Все едно
almost like abrasive chips. This is a design problem in all magnetic ride shocks.
конструктивен проблем.
The abrasiveness of the oil wears out the oil seal very quickly.
Абразивността на маслото много бързо.
So whether these shocks are on
Тоест, независимо дали те амортисьори са на
a Mustang, Corvette, Dodge, Ferrari, Lamborghini, or Audi R8, they all suffer from the same issue,
амортисьори. Всички те страдат от едно и също нещо, а именно
oil seal wear.
от износване на масления семенник. Когато
When the seal wears out, the oil degrades into mud and problems begin.
се получават проблеми.
So, what's the advantage of our solution?
Предимството на нашия solution, на нашето решение.
After our repair, the shock absorber becomes serviceable. What does that mean?
Какво значи?
Here is the guide of the shock absorber. Inside it sits the oil seal.
Водача на амортисьора. Във водача на амортисьора
We use an improved type of guide,
ние използваме подобрен тип.
which is not only much stronger, but also detachable.
Освен че са много по-здрави на разбиване, са разглобяеми.
This means that in the future, years down the line,
В бъдеще, ако не дай си Боже след година,
any repair will be inexpensive.
този амортисьор отново има проблем,
We can replace just the oil seal. That makes it far more
масления семенник. Тоест, това е много по...
eco-friendly, much cheaper, and much safer for the owner. Once this upgrade is done with us, any future repair will be quick and affordable, giving the owner peace of mind.
проблеми, всеки
This way, the owner is always protected.
ефтин. По този начин собственика е много по-подсигурен.
Now it's track ready.
Така, вероятно ще правим предните на този автомобил и вече би трябвало на
The Aventador is now much faster and safer.
по-сигурен.
Stay safe, all the best, and see you next time.